Welcome back on The Pursuit of Wealth, everybody. It's Rod with Powell Group, your home for MJ Stocks, crypto assets, news, and interviews. Today is Sunday, July 13th. Hope you're doing well. And in this video, by popular request, we're going to be going over my Auxly sell targets and exit plan. This is something that I've had a lot of requests from recently. I've done a couple of these in the past. And again, it's not financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. Do not buy or sell anything based on anything that I do, say, or write. But essentially, it's not anytime soon. I'm not selling anytime soon. But you got to have a plan. Typically, before you enter a trade or an investment, you should have a plan on when you're going to sell. And it's just as important to know when to sell as it is when to buy. So we'll get to all of that and more in this video today. Before we do, make sure to smash the like. If you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell, all that good stuff. You'll be notified on any future videos or when I go live. You can also follow us over on X as well. Formerly Twitter handle for that is @GroupPow. So you might recall my video here, Tilray, sell targets and exit plan. That one had a ton of views, over 2,000 views, 130 likes, had a really good turnout and feedback from that. And I did one for XRP as well. I know a lot of people on the channel are very big XRP fans, myself included. It's my largest crypto holding. I have more in XRP than my entire rest of my crypto portfolio and my entire MJ portfolio combined. That one's got over 4,000 views and almost 250 likes. And like I said, got a lot of really great feedback from that. So I wanted to come on, do a similar video here for Auxly, which you know that I've been very vocal and bullish on Auxly. I've been shouting from the rooftops really since it was at a penny. I got ridiculed. Everybody thought it was hilarious that I was making videos about a penny stock, a company at a penny. And then while most names are at 52-week lows or all-time lows, dropping to monthly lower lows, you've got Auxly here, which has just been on an absolute tear really since the lows of December and beginning of 2024, December 2023 and January 2024. And you can see it was at a penny, and it ran all the way up to just recently, just about 18 cents. Yeah, I think that was a high there, 17.5 cents. So we had our first ever monthly EMA 12 and 26 bull cross. We confirmed the monthly uptrend after a monthly triple bottom and triple top. So once we broke that resistance there at 5.5 cents, that was the go signal. And then we confirmed the monthly uptrend, first ever EMA 12 and 26 bull cross. It was looking fantastic. So we'll go over we'll do a bit more analysis here in just a moment as well, and my thought process regarding the technicals and what to expect. But typically, if you just put in the RSI, relative strength index, anything 30 and below is considered oversold, anything 70 and above is considered overbought. If you just don't buy and look to sell in this area, and if you just don't sell and look to buy in this area, you will do better than my 99% of retail traders, I would think, because most people buy when it's going up and most people sell when it's going down, the complete opposite. So when the monthly's oversold, that's typically a good time to buy. And when we're getting close to overbought, that's typically a good time to sell. And you can see, like I said, just from the beginning part of 2024 to now, we've gone from monthly oversold to monthly overbought. But look what happened last time we were monthly overbought. We hit 97. And then again, we were at around 80. And we're only at 69 at the moment. So it's not like, you have to run for the hills just yet. But again, what is your plan, right? So my plan is life-changing wealth, right? I'm not here for taco gains. I'm not a day trader. I'm here to capitalize on this industry that hasn't even gone legal yet in the US, right? The biggest capital markets in the world and biggest economy in the world. So I'm here mostly for that. And then also just, taking my profits at certain price levels. So I'll give you my sell targets, price levels. I'll give you the amount, and I'll even give you an example. So before we get into the example here in detail, I have it in two accounts. So I have a short-term account. This is pretty much the same for all of my investments. Short-term account is my RRSP. For those that are not in Canada that aren't familiar with it, it's a registered retirement savings plan. So essentially, all of your gains grow tax-free, but whenever you take the money out, you have to pay tax on it. And the idea is you take the money out of the RRSP whenever you're retired. Therefore, your taxable income is lower because you're not making a job. Your job income or your business income, right? When you're retired or something, the idea is you have less income, therefore you take it out and you're not going to be taxed at a higher bracket. It's going to be either like the same bracket or a lower bracket, right? That's kind of the idea. Whereas a TFSA, and in an RRSP, you're allowed contribution room, X amount of room, etc. In a TFSA, it's a tax-free savings account. And again, it's just, as the name suggests, it's all tax-free. So when you take the money out, it's all yours. But there's a certain lifetime contribution limit, and then each year, this year in 2025, it was $7,000. So I maxed mine out a few years ago now. So each year I have to wait until January 1st to contribute more money to my TFSA. But I focus on that one first because that's my long-term and tax-free, right? So it's all my money and gains are 100% mine. So this year I had an extra 7,000 and I put a lot of that into MJ, and I also bought the XRPQ ETF, which is the, I bought the Purpose ETF, and I'm going to be looking to add to XRPQ. It's a XRP ETF, spot ETF that you can buy in a TFSA or an RSP registered plan. And I'm going to be holding that one long term, right? So and then next year, January 1st, 2026, I'll get an extra 7,000. Hopefully, maybe it'll be more, fingers crossed. And then I'll look to add to more, potentially beaten down MJ. And we'll reevaluate at that point because we don't know what the price of everything's going to be. So that's the thought process there. And then long-term account, my TFSA, I'm not selling. I'm holding that until US legalizes federally. Some people do years. Some people use a certain event or catalyst. Some people do price levels. I do a mix of both. I do price targets, and then I do a long-term hold, and it's basically all based off of the US legalizing at the federal level. Could happen in 2 years, could happen in 4, could happen in 8, could happen in 12. I don't care. That's not what my strategy depends on. If you're somebody who retires in a year or whatever, you might not have the same plan, right? But I'm 35 and I can wait 10, 20, 30 years if I have to. But I don't think it's going to be that long. I think there's a good chance it happens over the next 2 to 4 years. But if we just take a look at this chart here, so this is the example now. So that's my TFSA, and also the long-term TFSA. The amount that I put into that one is a lot less, right? Because it's going to grow a lot more. So I'm not going to put as much money, dollar value, into that Auxly position because you don't need to, right? Even if you invested, a couple $1,000, if you hold that for 10 or 20 years or until the US legalizes, you could see 50 to 100x. That's for every $1,000, you could turn that into $50,000 or $100,000. Plus, you don't have a huge amount of room that you can put in the TFSA, right? I get $7,000 a year. So it's not like I can throw $100,000 in there. You can, but you get penalties, etc. Anyway, that's a whole different video. Now we'll go into the price targets and take profit levels. So this is going to be for my RRSP, which you can trade as much as you want. Again, this isn't tax advice or anything. I'm not a financial advisor or a tax specialist, so don't take that as such. But in an RRSP, my accountant told me you can trade as much as you want. In a TFSA, you can't. There was a story that, long story short, this one girl that my client had, this one client, she was a girl, and this is what my accountant told me, that one of his clients, she was a female, she was day trading essentially, doing frequent trading. The rule of thumb is less than one trade a month if you're profitable on that trade. And she was doing quote unquote day trading as confirmed by the CRA. And she went to trial. They took her to trial, and she actually ended up losing, and she had to give back all of her gains in the account. So you don't want to do that in a TFSA. I know a lot of people do. If you're down on the investment, if you're not in profit, it's probably not a big deal, right? But still, just be careful. RSP, you can trade as much as you want because you get taxed when you take it out, okay? So that's why I do this the way I do. So here's my average. This is my actual average. It's 3 cents. Now, I keep in mind, I was buying this thing at 10 cents, 5 cents. I think I was even started buying it maybe around 20 cents or 15 cents, but I was just nibbling, a few $100 every here and there. But when we got down to 2 cents and 1 cent, like a penny, I was like, oh my God, like I can add, $500 or $1,000 into this thing. And I'm getting insane amount of shares, right? So it was like a blessing from heaven. And to be completely honest with you, I was so bullish on Auxly. I interviewed their CEO, Hugo Alves, and I'm going to have him on the channel hopefully again soon, maybe around their next earnings report. Let me know in the comments if you want to see that happen. And so I was able to, lower my cost basis, my average, substantially. And then in this example, I'm going on 100,000 shares. I could have less than this. I could have more than this. Again, it's just I don't disclose how much I own or shares that I have or amount of crypto that I have. It's just a personal preference. But let's just say in this example, I have 100,000 shares, but my average is 3 cents. That's correct. I'm not lying about that. So what I would do is I would take the amount of 100,000 shares times my average, which is $3,000. So that's my investment that I made into this over time, right? So now I'm going to have my first take profit TP. So as you can see right here, first take profit 1 at 50 cents. There might not be the same here on the side just because I was on the monthly and it didn't line up correctly, but I have the numbers here. So it's 50 cents. Second level, that's my initial investment. Second level is $1. Third is $2. I didn't update it here, so I'll just do that here real quick. So that was take profit 2. Forgot to change that. And then take profit 3. And then actually it's technically 5 because the initial investment was 1. But anyway, you get the idea. I'll just put this as take profit 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So essentially 5 sells. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I like to dollar cost average and kind of lower my cost basis on the way down and then dollar cost sell, right? You don't want to get out too much, you know, at the beginning or all in one, because it's just never a good recipe in my opinion. So that is the logic behind there. And the reason why I'm using 15, 20%, 25, 40% is because like the amount of gains that I would have at that level, it'd be substantial amount of money, right? So I'm going to take a little bit more on a name like this at this level than I would normally on a different name that I didn't have as many gains on. So essentially 5 orders is how I'm going to be scaling out. So the first take profit, initial investment at 50 cents. So you see here, first TP, 50 cents, initial investment, 6,000 shares. That equals $3,000. That leaves me with 94,000 shares. So then of that 94,000, I take the 100% value. So if you take 94,000 times it by 0.15, so 15%, that gives you 14,100 shares. And I'd be selling that at $1. That gives me $14,100. Take profit 3, or I guess in this case it's 2, because this goes from 0 to 4 instead, just for easy sake. I don't want to go change it all. So take profit 2, 18,800 shares. So that's at $2 and 20%. So that ends up being 18,800 shares, 37,600. Take profit 3 would be $4 and 25%. So 25% of those shares is 18,800 shares at 37,600 because you times that by $4. And then the last one, 37,600 shares, and that was multiplied by 5, and that gives you $188,000. So you add 14,000, 37.94 and change, and 188,000. That gives you a total of $333,700. So can you imagine that so many people are investing? I get people all the time saying I have 200 shares, 200,000 shares of this, I have $500,000 invested into this. You don't need to invest, and again, do whatever you want, but you don't need to invest hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars into the space. My rule of thumb is no more than 5 to 10% of your net worth into one sector, let alone into one stock or crypto. So if you've got $500,000 into one stock, your net worth better be at least, $5 to $10 million, right? Meaning if you sold all your assets and paid all your liabilities and debt, you'd have a value of around 5 to 10 million, right? That's the golden rule. So as you can see, with just $3,000 invested at a 3-cent average Canadian, this is all Canadian, you would have $333,000 and change. So imagine if you put in 6,000 or 9,000, right? You could be a millionaire, and the most you can lose is $3,000, $6,000, $9,000, right? So that's the idea. That's how I like to approach these types of investments. And the great thing about these 98, 99% pullbacks is you get to load up at 99% discount, right? And at a penny, just imagine this thing goes back to all-time highs, a couple bucks, $2, $3, and then once we get back to $5, right, $4 or $5, once I'm completely out, then I'll wait for probably an 80%, 70, 80% pullback. Say we get to $5, right? I'll probably wait for at least a 70% pullback, and that would put us somewhere around just under $1 again, right? I'd start to accumulate again. But I would never go back in with all of that money, right? I'd maybe use 10 or 20% of this 333,000. So hopefully that makes sense. We had a bullish triple thunder crossover as well on Auxly, a close above the 10-week moving average, the stochastic MACD cross bullish, and we had a golden cross as well with the 50-day and the 200-day moving average crossing. When the 50 is below the 200-day and they cross, that's a golden cross. And you can see that was at 4 cents. Then we erupted to almost 18. Now we're seeing an even bullish indicator here and pattern, which is the 50-week and the 200-week moving average. When the lower time frame one is below the longer term, when the shorter term is below the longer term and it's on the weekly, that's even more bullish, folks. And we basically have no monthly resistance until about 35 cents. So giddy up. It's going to be an exciting few months if we get rescheduling, which is rumored to be very, very high probability of turning out by this fall. I think, after crypto legislation here over the next couple of months, You're going to see them pivot over to MJ. You could see rescheduling as well in the fall. And then I think safer banking is going to be a big push into the fall and then early 2026 before the midterms. So it's an exciting time. And just imagine if Auxly uplists to like a US major exchange, which is ultimately going to happen. They just removed the going concern. The Imperial Brands owns just under 20% of the company. They have negligible debt now and a credit facility with BMO for future growth. So things are looking fantastic for the company. And yeah, I've never been more excited and proud to be an Auxly shareholder and excited for the company. I have to have the CEO Hugo Alves on again soon, and I'll definitely be covering their next earnings, and I'll try to line that interview up sometime around then. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this. What's your sell target? What's your average? And we'll continue the conversation in the comment section below. Once again, it's Rod with Pow Group. Thanks again for joining us in the pursuit of wealth. Hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll see you again on the next one.